to be here. Special part of the world. There's so many special parts of this world. We were asked to sort of say what we believe. And every generation, I think, has this sense that they live in a special time. I'm sure the first kid who saw a locomotive coming down through their rural village somewhere, whether it was in the Hudson Valley where I live or somewhere else, was just thinking, boy, I live in a spectacular time. 200 years ago, you know, when some agricultural innovation came along, or the first teletype, the first book, the first whatever, everyone has this sense that they live in a special time. But I do believe we live right now in a particularly special time because, and this requires stepping back several scales from thinking about modern written history, from thinking about things that we've learned in school, but going all the way back to the origins of our species. There has never been a time when there's been a spike, kind of a growth spurt like we've had these last 150 years or so, much of it fueled by the wonders and the gifts of fossil fuels. You know, we went from 1 billion, in 1830, there were 1 billion people on the entire planet, old people, young people, babies, middle-aged people. Right now, there are 1 billion teenagers on planet Earth. Just let that thought sink in for a second. If you don't think this is a special time, just think about 1 billion teenagers. And by the way, that doesn't include the billion, almost 1 billion younger people. A third of the world is getting ready to procreate, or already doing it. And so if anyone tells you that population growth has been solved, this is not just about carbon. This is about numbers. It's about numbers, it's about population, it's about appetite. We've been in this growth spurt. We've been in what I've been calling lately sort of the species equivalent of puberty. We're in our cow tipping phase. We've spent the last 100 years going, whoa, look at that forest. Whoa, I think I'll take that. Oh, look at these fish. Look at these great bluefin tuna. Let's just scoop them up. Get a bigger boat that goes farther on diesel fuel and scoop up these go out, so scoop a little farther, scoop a little farther. And we've just been on this wonderful growth spurt. And we've had that adolescent kind of innocence where we could just go and go and go. When I was a kid, you didn't think that much. Recycling was just kind of becoming a concept. We used to sail on a little sailboat, and we had soda cans, and you'd throw it over the side, and with a little BB gun, you'd pop it and make it sink to the bottom. That was recycling. And now, though, science, satellites, space program has given us this view that the reason I called my blog at the times .earth is because I've been personally captivated ever since I was a kid by these images of our planet as this little mote in space. And that's a new thing. There were people who realized that a long time ago. Galileo realized that 500 years ago. But now, societally, we're just coming to grips with the reality that that there really is this thing, the global village, that we all really are in one habitat, that whether you like it or not, because of the globalization of trade, the globalization of communication and everything else, the fate of a kid in Bangladesh is very much the fate of a kid in your village. That kid could grow up, if given a tiny bit of opportunity, into an entrepreneur and help turn a town into a cell phone-based business. This is happening wherever there's just a modicum of opportunity. In some of the poorest places in the world, a loan of $10 can turn a young person into an optician. There's this group that's come up with this thing called optometrist in a box. It's called micro-franchise. This is beyond micro loans. And so you have a person who for $10, who for $1 can give a person eyeglasses and make that person a functional part of society. There are 1 billion people, another billion people on this planet right now who can't see well enough to work because they don't have $1 pair of eyeglasses. So we're at this moment where we've become aware of that kind of thing. We've become aware because of science that, guess what, there are limits to growth, maybe? I think Herman Daly may say something more about that. But we have infinite aspirations. We're on a very finite piece of real estate. We can measurably show how we've changed the atmosphere. The chemistry of the oceans, indeed, is starting to change. Ocean ecosystems, we still can buy albacore tuna at the supermarket, but when you look at the studies, in the last 50 years, 90% of the volume, the mass of the great predatory fishes of the sea are gone from what was there a half century ago. And science is just we're just slowly catching up with this idea. So that's what makes this time so special. We live, there's been so much woe is me and shame on you rhetoric surrounding issues like global warming for the last 20 or 30 years. I kind of back away from that, having written about this all for the last 20 years, 25 years. And I think we have to back away from that a little bit. And I'm not going to say forgive everyone. There are some very bad people in the world, as we know. But we have to forgive ourselves, Homo sapiens, a little bit. Having had this pubescent growth spurt, there's going to be some overshoot. We're in that phase where we're like the scientists are like that nagging parent to the teenager saying, hey, if you keep doing that, ... And now we, this young species that's so young, and in the middle of this blazing sprint, someone is telling us, you got to slow down. You got to change gears. You've got to modulate behaviors for the sake of not hitting a wall. You've spiked from 1 billion to 6.7 billion people. You're heading toward 9, more or less, before something happens. And is that a soft landing? Is that a soft transition? Or is it a real hard knock? That's the question of our time. And climate is a subset of that question. And I hope that if there's one thing I believe, it's that I said this not long ago on my blog too, to me, climate is not the story of our time. That underpinning transitional moment as we are making this potential leap from sort of that testosterone fossil-fueled sprint to a more reasoned pace, a more reasoned, literally, pace, where we're thinking ahead before we step in the big pothole and go, oh crap. If we can find a way to get through that transition, to soften the blows, to think a little bit ahead, to start to pull on our greatest resource as a species, which is our innovative potential. And the thing that's going to make this really hard is it can't just be a technological innovation. I've written a lot about what we need to do with solar and wind, the wind. If you don't have batteries, all kinds of problems. There are all these technical challenges. I was with Steve Chu, the new energy secretary, last week at Brookhaven National Labs, and he gets it. He understands that this isn't just turning down the lights. We do need that huge, sustained effort at innovation if we're going to get through this transition. Because, by the way, one quick aside is that the energy challenge is not just about carbon dioxide. The energy challenge we face right now on this planet includes the 2 billion people on this planet right now who, if they have something to eat today, will be cooking it on dung or firewood. And 1.5 million of them die young, mostly women and kids, every year because they're breathing indoor smoke from these guttering fires built of those fuels. That's just as much an energy challenge as figuring out how to store electricity from windmills. So there's all that, but there's also the values revolution. Somehow we have to figure out, the last question I want to leave you with is, we as a species have to ask ourselves, what do I want to be when I grow up? Meaning, how do I, in mid-sprint, how do we sort of change our value set? And hopefully we'll be exploring that a little bit the next couple of days. Thank you.